Good morning, everyone. Today we're going to run through our P6-Scrubber, and we're going to focus on our features for our what's new in this version, which is version 7. We'll go through it and show you how the software works and do a hands-on on it. So I'm Nicole Jardin. I'm joining today from Calgary, and doing the actual demo is Valerie Nicholson, also joining from Calgary. So let's touch on our P6-Scrubber. So why did we build it? Well, we built it because what we find with our clients, some of the common struggles, is that, over time, your P6 enterprise database, when you're doing lots of importing, gets messy, polluted, as we would say. So it gets full of potential codes, UDFs that you're not interested in. So you want to keep your database clean. Now, although on the import, we have some controls out of the box, what quite a few of our clients anyway, have found is it's not enough. So they end up with separate databases where they do scrubbing in, and it's quite time consuming. So they wanted a way to make that simpler. Okay, so they don't have to spend so much time. So that's why we built P6-Scrubber several years ago, and have adapted it over time to do more and more features. So the way that our scrubber works is it's importing files with a definition that you've set up on what to do with those files. So it's scrubbing them. So you can merge data, you can scrub data all together, so keep it out altogether, and you can do a variety of things with user-defined codes, both at all the levels, activities, projects, resources. We've got cost code validation as well. So Valerie will show you that in detail. And the idea is with the definition, you can use that definition over and over again. Okay, so it makes the ongoing importing, and we have clients that import things every week, every 2 weeks, every month, usually from contractors and engineering firms, but not necessarily. Those are the typical ones. You can keep reusing the same definition, which makes your importing much faster and keeping your database clean much easier. So in this particular version, we focused on a few things. So we have the ability to we've improved our simple scrub, the way that it works. It's easier, it's more detailed, and we've got prefixing controls. So that makes it much easier to reuse the definition over and over again. We're adding new pieces, better controls on the role codes, and over time we'll add a few more cost accounts and a few others that we know we still will work on. So that's what we're going to focus on today. We have features that are ongoing, just about completed on database to database as well. So those will be new things that we'll show probably in our next webinar, which is slated for next week. And then you can take a look at that as well. All right. Okay. So we are going to hand it over to Valerie, and she will jump into detail and show you how the tool works. Coming your way, Val.
Okay, so let me just begin to share my screen here. I am not able to share my screen. I'm not sure why. Okay, I think I have it now. All right, so okay, so let's go over our P6-Scrubber, and let's show everyone here what the changes we've made are to the scrubber. Now, I'm just going to log out first, just so that I can show you how the scrubber is actually working, because some of you may not be familiar with how we log into the scrubber and how security works within the scrubber. So what we're going to be doing here, I just log in using the same credentials that I do for my P6 database. So in this case, we're going to be accessing our demo database. And just like in P6, there is a drop-down where you can choose different databases if you have more than one database. We only have the one, and I just use my P6 credentials to log into the scrubber. It makes things simpler to have this set up in a way that it works the same way as in P6. So when I sign in here, you can see we have everything on the left. We have a bunch of different menu options. These are all our scrubber definitions, and this specifies where we are going to scrub our data, what data we're going to be touching with the tool, and what we're going to be telling the tool to do to specific portions of data. So we have, our project WBS section, we have our activities section, we have resources, we have calendars, we have notebook topics, we have roles, cost accounts, OBS, and finally, the last section down here is something called Simple Scrub. So within these windows, we have different options for projects. For example, we have a section for our ID and name. We have a section where we can look at our project codes and we can decide what we want to do with those project codes. And that we do in the action section here, where we can click in this action section for each of our codes and tell the tool what we want to do with each section of data here. So if I wanted to get rid of this code, for example, if this was a code perhaps from a contractor and we were not interested in that information and we didn't want it coming into our database, we could decide in this action section to scrub this code. And what that does is it tells the scrubber to remove that code out of our XCR or XML file. Now, to do this, we have to enable the section. So in every window, we have to click on this enable section if we want the tool to actually action anything that we've defined in this section. If I didn't want to touch the project codes at all I'd have to do is disable this section of the tool, and it's not going to do anything to that section of data. Now I can do this in the UDFs as well. With project UDFs, here it will tell you what kind of data type that user-defined field is. So for example, here we have text values and we have finish date values in here. Some other things you can do with the tool, you can choose to remap a code. So again, for example, say you have a file from your contractor and they have a notes section, right? They have a note section where they just put some notes in there. And say you did want to maintain those notes, but in your database, for example, you have all of these user-defined fields set up for specific contractors because you work with multiple contractors and you want to tell P6 to make sure that this notes section has a new name that matches with which contractor these notes are belonging to. In that case, what we would do is we go in this notes section and we go in this new UDF section and we can actually change the name in here. So say my contractor was Bird Construction, for example, I could remap this note section from my contractor's file and say, okay, make sure that that is now being remapped and renamed to match with this new name in here. Now, what that's going to do, because I don't actually have this user-defined field in my database, the scrubber is now going to be showing an X beside the matches P6 field. So what our scrubber is doing is, because it's connected to a database, it's always reading the information out of P6. So it is smart enough to know what information is currently in P6 and what information is currently not in P6. So what it's telling me here is it's just saying, okay, this value currently does not match something in P6. And you're going to have to manually confirm that you want to add new information into P6. We do this by just clicking on the little red X. It just asks us for an acknowledgement that we are going to be adding new information into our database. So the idea with this tool is to keep a database clean. That's why it's always going to be asking us whether we want to add new information. It's just making sure that we're aware that we might potentially be polluting our database here. But if I know this is what I want to do, I would click OK. And then that way we switch this icon to a little blue star, and we're telling the tool that, yes, we know that this is going to create new information in P6, and we're OK with that. Now, if I go and reverse this name change, if I went and took this bird construction section off and just swap this back to notes, you can see that there's a few options in here. Again, the scrubber is reading our data that is currently in P6, and it's letting us know that there are certain fields already in P6 that might match what we've typed in here. In this case, we have an exact match, notes. And when I select this notes section and I remove the manual validation, the scrubber checks again against our database, sees that there is a notes section already in P6, and it switches us back to a green check mark, letting us know that everything right now that we have in these user-defined fields is matching up what we already have in P6. Okay, so we have similar sections for activities as well. These work very similar to the projects windows. The only difference here is what kind of information we're looking at. So rather than looking at project codes and project user-defined fields in this activity section, we're looking at the activity codes and the activity user-defined fields. Now, the activity user-defined fields also contain expenses, steps, issues, and risks. So anything involving activities information, even if it's not an activity code in of itself, is in here. And you can see in the subject area, we can see all those user-defined fields, and we can see, again, whether they match what's in P6 or not. With resources, we have something a little bit different. You can see that there's still windows for the codes and user-defined fields, but we also have windows for something called remapping and for units of measure. So how remapping works is, again, what the tool is actually doing is it's reading our resource dictionary that is in P6 at all times. And what this little drop-down window does is this is our resource dictionary. And if I go and open P6 and I open my resource dictionary, you're going to see that this is, now it's not the exact same order, but you're going to see that this is essentially the exact same structure that we see in P6. And we can type in this search bar to find what we're looking for. So what this is doing is, if we want all our resources in our file to go into a certain place that already exists in our hierarchy, in this case, I want to select this P6-Scrubber What's New section of the hierarchy. I'm telling the tool basically to take all the resources that are in my XCR file and please move them into a specific part of my hierarchy that already exists. That's what I'm telling the tool to do here when I select an option in this resource hierarchy. So what I'm expecting to have happen in my file is that these resources are going to get moved over into this part of my resource hierarchy. And this is just to keep the hierarchy clean, keep it organized. If you are doing a lot of importing, I'm sure that you already know that if you have a bunch of files coming in from different contractors, from different sources, and they all have resources in them, it gets very messy very quickly, and it can be hard to find what you're looking for. So that's what this window is doing here. We have the option to tell the tool to put those resources into a specific part of your hierarchy. Okay. Now, what we can also do in here is the exact same things that we've been seeing in the codes and the UDF section, where we look at the name of all the resources. We can check to see if they already exist in P6, and we can rename and remap them as necessary. Resource codes work, again, very much like the project codes and the activity codes. All this is it's just looking at those codes that belong specifically with the resources. Same with the user-defined fields, similar idea to what's going on in the project UDFs and the activity UDFs section. Units of measure, this is a little bit different because units of measure, of course, only belong with material resources. But here we do have the option to look at those units of measure. Again, see if they are matching what's currently in P6. And we have the ability to give them new abbreviations and new names, or to just remove. To remove them, I would have to go into a different section. But yes, we can also scrub these as well. Okay. Calendars, a little bit different. We have the calendars window broken up into global, project, and resource areas, depending on what type of calendars you want to look at. Global calendars has the most options here, where we can select whether we want to roll those global calendars down to the project level and whether we want to be changing their names. So to roll a calendar down, what you do is you go into this roll down actions section, and you can select whether to make that a project calendar or whether to not do that. Project calendars, this window is a little bit limited. In this view, we can't actually do anything to these project calendars, but I am going to show you the simple scrub. And in simple scrub, we have the option to do a few changes to the names of our project calendars within our file. Resource calendars, there aren't any in this file to show you. However, it works very similarly to the global calendars, where you'll see a list of those calendars, and you'll be able to rename them as needed. Notebook topics, similar to how the other sections work. Here we have this choice about what actions we want to take with them. If our contractors are putting a bunch of notes on their projects, on their activities, and we don't on their WBS, and we don't want to keep those, we would have the option to remove them in here. Now, the major area where we've made changes, first we have the roles, and then we have the simple scrub. So here is where we've made a change in 7 here. So before version 7, all we had in the roles section was this remapping section, where we could choose, this works just like how it does in resources, where again, P6, the scrubber is reading what is currently in our role dictionary. So if I open up P6 here and I go into enterprise and I pop open the role dictionary, you'll see I have my whole dictionary here and the hierarchy set up. So this works just like it does in the resources window, where it's reading that information. And from here, we can open up that roles dictionary, and we can choose whether we want to be taking the roles that are in our file and moving them into a specific place in our hierarchy. So here, if I wanted all of my roles in this file to go under P6S, this P6S project division section, what I would do is I would look for it in the tool with the search bar, type in P6S. It will go ahead and find that for me in my hierarchy. And I can click on this, and that's just telling the tool, okay, make sure that those roles are going to be going into this part of the hierarchy. So that's what the role remapping does. But now we have this section for codes as well. We didn't have this prior to version 7. We've added it into the tool. Now we have the option to go ahead, look at any codes that are on our roles and choose what we're going to do with them and choose if we want to give them a new name. So that's what the role codes section is doing here. Now, we also have cost accounts. I think at this point, this is pretty self-explanatory. Most of these windows will give you a list of the information and their names. You can select an action to do with them, such as removing them from the file or keeping them. And you can select a new ID for them and a new name for them. With cost accounts as well, we have a hierarchy here where we can select where in the hierarchy we're going to be putting these cost accounts. So again, works very similarly to resources and roles in that way. And then finally, we have the OBS here. What this does is it's telling P6-Scrubber to make sure that your projects in your file all have a specific security profile, a specific responsible manager associated with them. And again, you can see your hierarchy. You can see your OBS or your organizational breakdown structure here. And you can select where, what OBS this project or these projects need to have associated with them. Okay. So those are all the major sections. And finally, we have a definition called simple scrub. And here, this is really the meat of what we've changed in version 7. We've done a complete overhaul of our simple scrub. Just to show you how pronounced the change is, I have a screenshot from our previous version of Scrubber, and I'm just going to put that on the screen for you. Okay. So this is what the simple scrub looked like in version 6 of our P6-Scrubber. As you could see, we had a separator section, and then we have different sections of information. This is essentially, you use this if you want to take the same action for every single bit of a selected data type. So if, for example, all my resource codes, I wanted to put a prefix on every single one of them, or maybe I wanted to delete all of them. I didn't want to bring any of them in. This is where I could go to very quickly set up some defaults that for the scrubber to adhere to when I was scrubbing a project. So if you don't want to go individually one by one and validate every section of your data, if you know you just wanted to do the exact same thing for every single bit of a certain piece of data, you would do it in the simple scrub section here. So again, this is what it looked like in the previous version, and this is what it looks like in the new version. Okay, so as you can see, there was a big cosmetic overhaul here. But there's also been some added functionality in here as well. We still have this separator section. What this is when you're putting a prefix on any portion of your data here, This is just telling the tool to make sure that there's a separator between your prefix and between the original name of your data. So that's all this is doing. Now, we have now simplified the view a little bit, where it gives you some columns telling you, this is what kind of information you're going to be scrubbing. Do you want to scrub it? Do you want to delete it completely from your database? So if I toggle any of these scrub sections, for example, on activity UDS here, what I'm telling the tool is don't import any of them, get rid of them from my file. Now, we also have roll down options in some of these sections, such as for activity codes and calendars. What that's telling the tool is if you have any global calendars, for example, make sure all those global calendars in my file get brought down to the project calendar level. Same with my activity codes. What I'm telling the tool right now is I want to take all of my activity codes, all my global activity codes, and bring them down to the project level. And then we have prefixes and hierarchy parents. So what we've done in the new version, in version 7 of P6, is we've added the ability for the tool to look at codes and user-defined fields that already exist in P6 and create prefixes based off of those codes. We can also still do a manual entry. So in this example, in the resources, in the hierarchy parent section, I didn't use a code to tell the tool what to do. All I did here is I typed in P6S into this hierarchy parent area. What I'm doing there, you're going to see a menu kind of pop up here, but you don't have to use the menu. If you're typing in manually, all you can do is ignore the menu and click away from it. What this is doing is I just typed in that I want those resources to go under my P6S parent here. So in my resource dictionary, I do have a P6S parent. You can see it's right here. So what I'm telling the tool is to make sure that all of my resources go into this part of the hierarchy. Okay. So that's what I'm doing there. In terms of this code, what this is doing, let me show you in P6 again, is I have right now a project code called P6S project division in here. And it is corresponding to my projects in P6. So this project has this project code assigned to it. It has DEE01. ELK here has the ELK01, and Badger Pass here has BAD01. So what I'm telling the scrubber to do is whenever I have a project that has this code on it, what I want it to do with all this information, every bit of information I have set up here with this prefix, is I'm saying read this code. So in this case, ELK01 or BAD01 or D01. Read that information, take that value, and make it into my prefix on my activity codes, on my calendars, on my resources, on my resource codes, on my roles, on my role codes. That's what I'm basically telling the tool to do here. So that's what this looks like.
So Val, let's just recap. So we can use a field in P6 for the prefixing.
Yes.
We can do a manual prefix.
Yes.
And then with the hierarchies, we can also hook on to the hierarchy in the system.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So we can kind of do a few different flavors. Now, your prefixing here, you've used the code, but can you use a code sometimes and a different code sometimes, and also a UDF sometimes?
Yes, you can do all of those things. So say, for example, for my resource codes, I wanted a different prefix on here. I don't always have to use the exact same code. I've done it for the sake of example. But if in my resource codes, I wanted a different code to be used here, say I instead wanted to use this area code in order to prefix my resource codes, I could do that. Say in my role codes, I wanted to use a user-defined field instead. What I'm doing here is I'm just clicking into this prefix section. And again, it gives me a list of all my codes and all my UDFs when I do this. I can start typing in, or I can just scroll. Say I wanted to use...
Yeah, that's our demo database. We got
we have a lot
of stuff in it.
But say we wanted to use...
Okay, so that list you're seeing is UDFs at the project level, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. These are all user-defined fields at the project level.
Okay.
We can actually see that in P6 when we go to these user-defined fields. If I go to projects, you're going to see, again, we have a lot of project user-defined fields in our database. But these do match up to what we're seeing in P6.
Okay. So there's the flexibility depending on the particulars of the client's requirements that you can mix and match. Okay, perfect. But most of the time, you're probably prefixing in the same manner. So a code makes good sense.
Yes, when we built this for our client, a client that requested this feature, they already had a code that they were using to tag every single individual project with. So we just went and selected that code for everything because, again, they already had that code set up ready to use. But we do have the flexibility. Say I just wanted to use P6S in here again. I would have the option to just manually type things in, and I have the option to use codes and user-defined fields that are already set up in our database. So we do both.
Okay, so you should set them back because I just diverted you, but yeah. Okay.
And to set them back, all I do is start typing in here. I should do it correctly, P6S, project division. And I just click on this in the pick list, and now it's here and ready to use.
Do your resource code too, Val. I diverted you on that one, the resource code.
Yep. Go ahead and do that.
Perfect.
We can also do copy and pastes. So I can copy this code section, paste it in, and then click on the option when it comes up in the list. Okay, so now we are ready to scrub a file. Let's show you how the scrubbing works. So first thing I have to do, I don't think I changed anything, but let me just make sure. I'll just turn that off. Here I'm just making sure I didn't make any changes that are going to surprise me. Okay. So the last thing you have to do once you have everything set up is save your definition. So I already had this definition predefined, but I have made changes to it. And you can see with the little save icon below here that I have made unsaved changes. That's what this icon lets you know. If you already have a definition set up, you can click on this icon. And it's a little confused right now, but that's okay. And it will save it. If it gives that message that it just said where nothing was set up, it did that because I logged out and back in. So now it's a little bit confused about my definitions. I can click on this save and load button. And from here, I can select an option here. If you're making something from scratch, a definition from scratch, you would have to use the Save As button here to save a new definition. I want to save over my P6-Scrubber What's New version 7 here. So I'm just going to click on save. And it doesn't like that, but that's okay. And if you're trying to load a definition, if you've saved one and you want to use it again, which is normally the case when you're using this tool, click on the load button. I don't believe I made any changes, so I'm just going to click on yes. And now my definition is here, loaded and ready to use. Now, the next thing I have to do is tell the tool what file I want to be scrubbing. So how you would do this, I already have the files on my computer, but how you would do this as new users is you take a file, take a project out of P6 that you want to scrub. Say, for example, I want to scrub this Park Pass project. I right click, I open it up, and I go into the native P6 export function. So we're taking advantage of P6's native functionality here. I'm just going to export this project. You can select either XMLs or XCR files when you do this. For the sake of time, I'm just going to select an XCR here because that's faster to download. I'm going to select the entire project, and I'm going to go ahead and just put this in my downloads so I can easily access it. And I have a file for this, or a folder for this, so I'm just going to go and save it there.
So in this case, you're getting one, but most clients, most people would be just receiving one, right, from a contractor or engineering company, vendor.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So what I just showed you is what the contractor is probably going to be doing to get that file to you. Then they send it to you. And from here, what we want to do is want to click on the Scrub Files button. So in here, you can see, again, the tool works with both XCR and XML files, and you get a list of all the previous operations that were being done. As you can see, I was working on this quite a bit. You can drag and drop your files, or you can click and select them. Again, I'm just going to go into my downloads and pop open this new file, this one pre 3 here. I'm going to open that up, and I'm going to click on process. The tool's going to run. Now, these are pretty small projects. They're just in our demo database. For a larger project, it might take 10 to 15 minutes, depending on the size of your project. Just know that that's normal. It just depends on how much information the scrubber needs to be handling, needs to be scrubbing, right? So if it took a bit longer, that would be fine. It just depends on how large the project is. Now we have a file here. You can see I have some details. I have the ability to download the results, and I can view my report. The report here just tells us what was actually applied to this particular file. Just for the sake of time, I'm not going to go through all of these options. I just want to make you aware that this report tells you what exactly you did to this file. All of these options are not enabled because I didn't turn them on in the tool. I handled these with the simple scrub, which has its own section. The activity codes, these were rolled down here. And you can see in this section too, it will tell you whether it promoted any codes to global, whether it remapped any of them, and whether any of them were scrubbed. In this case, I was taking some of these codes and putting a prefix on them and possibly remapping them. Most of the interesting stuff in here is going to be in this simple scrub section. And you can see here, this is, again, working in batches. So here you don't have a detailed breakdown right away. You have it a little bit further below. But the first thing it says here is it tells you what you told the tool to do in terms of importing things, in terms of rolling them down, in terms of putting them into the parent hierarchy. And you can see in this prefix section, again, what the tool did is it took that code value. If I go back to P6, it took this project division value, applied that as the prefix, and moved things into a parent hierarchy based on this code. And then we have a more detailed breakdown a little bit below where it tells you with the simple scrub all of the information that the tool went and changed. The big thing here is the resource dictionary, because it went and took all my resources and put prefixes on them and then moved them into the hierarchy. So once you've done the scrub, you can go to download results. And from here, you're going to get a zip file, a compressed file. You're going to have to go ahead and extract that in order to upload it back into your database. And the reason for that is just because in this file, there are two files that are generated. There's that actual XCR itself, and then there's a report. This report is exactly what I showed you here. You have the option in the tool to make it a notebook topic or just have that report out separate from your file. So here, that's what that report is. Just make sure that you always have a report of what's actually been done in this file here. So now I have my file. Now I will go into my P6 database, and here I would import this in. So again, we're just using the basic import functionality that already exists in P6. No need to reinvent the wheel here. We select an XCR. We go ahead and grab that XCR. We open it up, click next. Here, it is recognizing that I already had that project in P6. I'm just going to create a new one instead, though, just so we can see the differences between these two files. And I go ahead and select what EPS I want to bring this into, and we're going to import that file. And again, this is a pretty small file, so this shouldn't take too long here. Okay, we've imported successfully, and we can see here we have our new file. Okay, so, and again, in the notebook, we can actually see the exact same log of the changes that were made to this file. So again, there's always going to be a record for you to go back to that tells you what changes have been made in this file. I'm just going to go ahead and open this file individually, and let's go take a look at what's actually been done in terms of the columns here, in terms of my information. So in the codes, let me just open this up so you can see it. You can see here, now my work type code has a prefix on it. This ELK01, this is, the tool has gone ahead and added that code onto this, or that prefix onto the activity codes. In the calendars, let me pop open the calendars. You're going to see, again, my calendars have been rolled down to the project level. And you can see they now have this prefix on them because I told the tool to go ahead and prefix all of these calendars in here. In terms of the roles, let me go ahead and open those up. What I'm expecting to see here, yep, there we go. Okay, there was only one assignment in this project, and that was involving my engineer role here. You can see here it's been given a prefix, and that engineer role has been moved into this ELK 01 section. Again, this is all happening because I told the scrubber to do this. It's gone ahead, added those prefixes, and moved things within the hierarchy. Same with the resources. What I'm expecting to see here, yep, and I see it past this DEE section, we have an entire section just with ELK 01, and every resource that was assigned in this project is now been given this prefix, and it's been moved into the hierarchy here. And I can tell that these resources were all in my current project, because if I go into my filter and I select current projects resources, you're going to see just the list. I want to show you the hierarchy first, but here's just the list of resources. You're going to see here they've all been given the ELK 01 prefix. And in my resource codes below, let me just make this a little bigger for you guys. In the codes, you're also going to see those resource codes have had the prefix, the ELK 01 prefix added to them here. Okay, so that's what we've done in terms of changing the information in this project. Does anyone have any questions while I still have P6 up and while the scrubber is still up?
No, I don't think there's any.
Okay. All right, then I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And thanks, everyone. Let's go ahead into our conclusion.
Okay, yeah, I'll take back the sharing. All right, great. Thanks, Al. Okay, so in this version, that was the main change. We added the ability for the scrubber to hook on to your database that you're pointing into to allow you to use some of the codes, UDFs, for your prefixing. Now, the benefit of this is you're going to be able to have a definition that you don't have to manually touch, okay? So this definition is going to be more reusable. We're working on the ability for it to do multiple projects, and we've got the ability to do database to database. So we just need that working in our demo, and our next webinar will have that working in our system. So lots of more automation, and then a sneak peek on something we're working on for the next version is to allow you to drop the project into a folder, and then it automatically does the scrubbing and importing for you using the definition, preset definition. Okay, great. So thanks for attending this morning. Hopefully you saw something of interest. If you do a lot of importing, I think our tool is really the best in the market. Most tools don't work in line with your database. So hopefully you saw something that is interesting. If you want to talk to any of us more, here's Val's information. And if you're in different parts of the world, you can also reach out to Donna, who's in the Philippines. Okay, great. Thank you for attending. I'll stop the recording here.